All right, so today we're going to be looking at the world of construction, specifically architects, building designers, and builders. You know, like when you see a cool building and you're like, who made this thing?
Yeah, it's a whole process and a team of people working behind the scenes to make it happen.
Right. It's really interesting. And like for someone like me, honestly, I don't know much about construction. So I was looking at Job Bank and articles comparing like all their qualifications and even found some guides about getting licensed here in BC.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So let's just start with architects because, I mean, they design everything right, like from huge skyscrapers to tiny little coffee shops.
Yeah, they're the ones who really kind of come up with the concept and the plans, and they think about how the building's going to be used and all that.
Okay.
It's not just how it looks, it's like the whole thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into it.
Right. So from what I was reading, to become an architect is like super hard, right?
And, if you want to be an architect,
Yeah.
in the USA, you need to take the ARE.
The architect registration examination.
Exactly. And if you're in Canada, you need to take the Exec C, which is the examination for architects in Canada.
Yeah. Okay.
Both these exams, they really test an architect's in-depth understanding of design principles and structural engineering, building codes, all that fun stuff.
So it's not something that you could just, you know, kind of just fall into.
Yeah, it's definitely not a walk in the park to become an architect. There are like a ton of exams and you have to do an internship.
Wow.
And it's definitely worth it because they protect, public safety.
Right.
So you want to make sure that the people designing buildings know what they're doing.
Yeah, for sure. So, okay, let's say I have a project and I need like a small office space. Would I still need an architect? Or could I just, hire a building designer?
That's a good question. And that's where it gets a little tricky because building designers, as the name suggests, also design buildings. But their scope is a little bit different. They typically focus on like homes, smaller commercial projects.
Okay, so they might be good if you're like building a new house or something like that.
Exactly. They're more specialized.
Okay.
And they also need to be very knowledgeable about all the different codes and the structural stuff and energy efficiency. It's a lot more than just, drawing a pretty picture. They have to make sure the building's going to stand up and all that.
Right. So building designers have like limitations then in what they can do.
They do. And I was reading this article, British Columbia Building Design Limitations, and it talked about how in BC, building designers can't actually design buildings over a certain size or if it has a specific level of complexity.
Right. So like skyscrapers are out of the question.
Yeah, if you want a skyscraper, you're going to need an architect.
Got it. Okay, so we've got the architects, the building designers, and now let's talk about the builders. So those are the ones who take like the plans and actually like build the thing.
Yeah, they're the ones on the ground making it all happen. Becoming a builder has this guide to construction in BC, and it talks about all the responsibilities they have, like managing the people working on the site, getting all the materials, making sure everything is safe. It's a lot.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's a whole process to become a licensed builder, too.
So do you need like a degree to become a builder?
Not necessarily, but the CHBA, BC, they have a program.
Oh, the Canadian Home Builders Association of BC.
Yeah, they have a program for aspiring builders, and it covers like everything you need to know about building codes, techniques, all the business and legal stuff. It's super comprehensive.
So they're like business people and construction workers all in one.
Pretty much, yeah. And there's a licensing exam, too. So after they finish the program, they have to pass that before they can officially call themselves builders.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then to keep their license, they need to keep learning and earning points, I think they're called, continuing professional development points.
So they have to keep learning new things all the time.
Yeah. It's super important that they stay up to date because, building codes change and there are always new materials and technologies.
Makes sense. Okay, that's really interesting.
So we were talking about the limitations on building designers.
Right.
And it's interesting because those actually can change depending on where you are.
Oh, okay.
So what a building designer can do in British Columbia might be different in, say, Alberta or Ontario.
Oh, wow. That's good to know.
Yeah, so if you are thinking about a construction project, the first thing you really need to do is
figure out what the ruler you are.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what are the specific regulations in your province or your city even?
Okay.
Because that could really impact, who you need to hire.
Makes sense, yeah, for sure.
So that brings us to the question of like, okay, how do you actually choose the right professional for your project?
Right, because even if you know you need an architect.
Yeah.
Like, how do you even choose one?
Right. There are so many out there.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you go to a new city and you're like, where do I even eat?
I know. There are just so many options.
Yeah.
So just like with restaurants, you can start by asking people you know,
Oh, yeah.
like friends or family.
Recommendations?
Yeah, exactly. If
Okay.
they've had a good experience with an architect or a builder,
Okay, so word of mouth.
word of mouth is always a good place to start.
But what if you don't know anyone who's built anything?
Yeah, what if you're kind of starting from scratch?
Right.
Well, there are some things you can look for when you're evaluating potential architects or building designers or builders.
Hmm. Okay, like what?
Well, first and foremost, you got to check their qualifications.
Their experience.
Their experience, yeah.
Make sure they're licensed.
Exactly. Make sure they're licensed to work in your area and that they have a track record of successful projects.
So it's like doing a background check on your construction crew.
Yeah, pretty much. You want to make sure you're working with someone who knows what they're doing.
Right, for sure.
And then another thing to consider is communication style,
Oh, yeah, that's important.
because construction projects can be really stressful.
Oh, I bet.
There are a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
So you want to work with someone who's a good listener,
Right.
who can communicate clearly.
And answer your questions.
Yes, and who's willing to answer your questions and address any concerns you have.
That makes a lot of sense because you're going to be working with these people for a
For a
while.
long time, yeah.
So you got to make sure you can actually get along with them.
Absolutely. You want to make sure you can build a good rapport.
Yeah, for sure.
So how can you tell if you're going to be able to communicate well with someone before you actually hire them?
Right.
The initial consultation,
Oh, okay.
that first meeting you have with them,
Right.
that's really key.
Okay.
Use that meeting to ask questions, see how they respond to you, get a feel for their approach.
Okay.
Do they seem genuinely interested in your project? Do they listen to your ideas? Do they offer creative solutions? Those are all good signs.
So you're saying it's not just about like their technical skills, but also their personality.
It's the whole package, yeah.
Okay.
It's about finding someone who you feel comfortable working with, someone who understands your vision.
Like any relationship, communication is key.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got qualifications, experience, communication,
Mhm.
anything else.
Well, we can't forget about budget.
Oh, right, of course.
That's a big one.
Yeah, because construction can be really expensive.
It can be, yeah.
So should you talk about money right away?
I think it's really important to discuss fees up front.
Okay.
Get a clear understanding of how they structure their pricing.
Okay.
Some professionals will charge a flat fee for the whole project,
Right.
and some will charge an hourly rate.
Oh, okay.
So you want to make sure you understand how they do it and that you're comfortable with their payment terms before you sign anything.
Yeah, it's like better to have that awkward conversation up front than to have like a huge surprise later on.
I agree. Transparency is so important.
Right.
And, just to be clear, the cost of hiring an architect or a building designer or a builder can vary a lot.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
It depends on their experience, where they're located, the complexity of your project, all sorts of things.
So how do you even know what's a reasonable price?
That's a good question.
Like, what should you expect to pay?
Well, there's no easy answer to that.
Oh, yeah.
But for a simple renovation, like if you were just doing a kitchen or a bathroom, a building designer might charge a few $1,000s for their design services.
Okay.
An architect might charge a bit more, maybe a percentage of the total project cost.
Okay.
And then, of course, the builder's fees will depend on how much work they're doing.
Building a home or any kind of structure, it's a huge thing to do, but it can also be a really amazing experience. With a good team, a clear vision, and a bit of patience, you can turn those construction dreams into reality.
That's right. And who knows, maybe we'll be back here someday talking about your awesome new project. But until then, happy building, everyone.